First of all, thanks. Thanks a lot to everyone for dialing in and making the time for the presentation. As Nikita mentioned, yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And these are difficult times, different times, and yeah, it's good to see if we can share any of our experiences and see if we can make the most out of it. So I'll just enlarge the presentation to see if I can have a full screen. Here we go. So this is me just before I start talking about leadership and people engagement in time of crisis, just probably a short overview of my background and why I believe I'm the right person to be talking about the topic today. So born and raised in Skopje in Macedonia, have continued my schooling in Australia. I have obtained my Bachelor of Commerce specializing in finance and HR there. Continued to do my Masters of Commerce in International Finance and obtained my doctorate as well in banking and finance. And from there, I had an executive training done through the Harvard Business School, and yeah, currently a member of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. In terms of the professional career, so it all started with corporate finance advisory. And from there, I quickly moved into private equity, where I spent about 6 years investing in growing companies and traveling around New South Wales and Queensland, finding the right investment opportunities. From there, then I spent a little bit of time in group strategy and quickly moved into a role of Chief Operating Officer for the Global Corporate Institutional Bank for National Australia Bank. And only 2 years ago, I started in the role called Customer Executive of National Australia Bank. I currently lead a team of around 60 people around Australia, mainly relationship managers and credit analysts that focus on government, education, and community. So that's pretty much my career and my background. I did some lecturing, corporate finance lecturing at Macquarie University here in Australia, yeah, that was lots of fun, but very demanding, and probably some 5 or 6 years ago, focused on my career in banking fully. So just wanted to share with you a recent experience before we start going into some of the theory and some of my observations and experiences. This was something that quite resonated with me. So the division that I work in at the moment is called growth sectors, and the reason it is growth sectors is that the industries that division covers, and some of those industries are the ones that I'm the leader of, represents 70% of the GDP growth in Australia. So it's a highly growing kind of business that has a very strong performance culture. It is all around increasing revenues. It is all around, increasing market share, customer acquisition, and so forth. So the leadership meetings are mainly led by, talking about achievements, results, people engagement, customer experiences, and acquisitions, and so forth. So it's very much, I guess, an environment and a culture that is focused on delivery and execution. So as the whole pandemic started, call it, 3 or 4 weeks, weeks ago here in Australia, we had one of the leadership team meetings, and the usual, we all got together. It's probably 7 or 8 of us in the meeting. And one of the colleagues, we just started with the same operating rhythm, with the same topics. And one of the colleagues turned around and they said, so how do I continue to ask my people, to kind of focus on business development, focus on delivery? And the first thing that came to mind, and that was probably one of those intuitive things that come about, it's like, well, you don't, right? So this is a completely different environment. This is, these are circumstances where people actually go back to the very basics. They go back to the basics of, having the need to pretty much secure a job. They need to feel safe. They need to feel healthy, and they're very much concerned about well-being, and everything over and above that is something that, they probably won't be able to absorb or process at this point in time. So the lesson to me was, what differentiates a good leader from a probably not so good leader is the ability to take a step back and really become aware of the circumstances and the environment that we operate within, and adjust. It's all about being flexible. It's all about being able to literally have an approach that, satisfies the needs of the organization and the needs of the people, which is in line with the current environment. So that's probably a good segue now into the next slide, which is pretty much, going back to the basics, so why do we actually need leaders? And, some of us may think that, well, it is just a concept that has been introduced or imposed by the society, or it is organizations that actually, have the need of leaders. And kind of, reading through things and even from personal experiences, I believe leadership is a natural phenomenon. And I used Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and Abraham Maslow is an American psychologist who lived and operated in the mid 1900s, and he was not mid 1900s, late 1900s, and he in 1943 he pretty much published the Maslow hierarchy of human needs, which pretty much introduces 5 hierarchical human needs. And the concept of this is that you can't progress to the next level until you satisfy the prior level. So if we take the psychological needs, for instance, that's your need for food, for air, for water, kind of safety, all the basic, existential needs. And then you move into safety needs, right? So those are the needs where, you need to feel safe from natural disasters. Those are the needs where, you need to feel that, you're not subjected to violence. Again, once that has been satisfied, you move on to the social needs, which are the needs for friendship, the needs for belonging, the needs to have a life partner. And once you have actually achieved that, then you go into the self-esteem needs. That's kind of, your ego. That's where, you need to kind of, achieve your almost kind of, professional kind of status. And the self-actualization is the level where you're doing your best. You're kind of, achieving your best. So the hypothesis here, the theory here is that, it all starts with that kind of primary need to survive, right? So when we were born, we all have the survival instinct. And for us to do that, we need your parents to step in as leaders to show us or to teach us how to stay healthy and how to survive, right? So they teach us right from wrong. They give us some basic kind of, livelihood skills. So when we get to the point where we're ready to leave our family home and go to university or pursue a career, we're actually ready to move on and have, I would like to think most of us will have those basic skills of staying alive and staying healthy, right? So from there on, you move on to a different stage in your life where you will face different set of challenges as you enter into university, or as you enter the workforce, or you pursue other life challenges. And again, it will usually feel uncomfortable. So you will need other leaders, be that your university professors, or your boss, or some other person of authority that will help you figure out your way and kind of, help you, establish your way throughout the process. Then you have the basic needs. So that was the first basic need of survival, right? So survival throughout life. Then the second basic need is the need of purpose, right? So every single human being out there is probably questioning themselves at some point in life, so why am I here, right? So what is the purpose of my existence? And if individuals are religious, they would usually look up to religious leaders to help them find a purpose. In day-to-day life, some people may try to find or make a sense out of things, by talking to their colleagues, through their, partners, through their bosses and so forth. So that's the second kind of, basic need. And then the third basic need is kind of that self-esteem need. That's the kind of need to succeed. Again, from a psychological perspective, that's another kind of, natural need to be successful. Because I guess, in general terms, successful people are the people that would usually do better in life, right? So they would usually have a greater probability of finding a life partner that will help them find the purpose. They will have, kind of better means to afford kind of that safety and security they desire and so forth. So in summary, the concept of leadership is something that, it is a natural phenomenon. It is something that we all require in life rather than something that is imposed upon us. Any questions on this so far, or are we happy to carry on?
I'm fine, and thank you for actually bringing in Maslow in these difficult times. Yes, good approach to the
I think
topic.
it's
Thank you.
Maslow starts to make lots of sense these days. All right, we'll carry on then. So then the next question is, so what differentiates a high impact leader or high impact leadership to kind of, average leadership? And the leaders that probably most of us admire and most of us resonate or kind of, feel compelled to follow are the ones that have the ability to connect their purpose, to connect their values and beliefs to their actions. And I was kind of trying to think of some leaders out there that I thought, did that really, really well. And not sure if most of you are familiar with Jacinta Ardern. She's the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Obviously, given the geographical proximity, we get to hear and see quite a lot of Jacinta. But what she did last year was absolutely amazing. And she won the hearts and minds of not just, the New Zealand population, but I think the global population. You may or may not have heard that probably towards the end of 2019, there was a tragic event. There was a shooting in 2 mosques in Christchurch, and about 50 individuals of a Muslim religion were killed, and many, many more were wounded. So what Jacinta did, she had this national public address where, she presented herself with a scarf, which was very respectful, obviously, to the people of that religion. And she was so emotional, there was so much grieving in her speech and so much compassion, which was, very touching. And in one hand, some kind of individuals may have been critical that she was too emotional, kind of pushing it a little bit too far on kind of, showing too much of the female traits, if, there is such thing. However, what she did the next day was quite astonishing. So transforming from the fully compassionate, understanding, grieving leader, the next day she actually passed through the legislation, or I guess, through the parliament to ban the production and the use of all semi-automatic weaponry in New Zealand, which was, absolutely amazing. So that's only one of the things that obviously people would talk or recognize Jacinta Ardern for, and there's so many other things that she's doing. But yeah, she's probably one of those leaders that, not only that she talks the talk, but she also walks the talk. Another one is probably Bill Gates, and this is all subjective, right? I mean, I was speaking all these names from probably my impressions of what I have read in the past, and we all know Bill Gates for his amazing work through Microsoft. He's a great visionary. He's a great transformational leader. You know, there are obviously, you know, lots of reviews of his leadership and you know what he brought to the table. And look, you know, every leader has probably a downside as well. He was often perceived as being a little bit autocratic. But then what he was able to visualize and then to kind of motivate the people to follow and to translate into real life. And also even his life post Microsoft, his philanthropic work has been absolutely amazing in terms of trying to impact the lives of less privileged people. Less privileged people has been absolutely amazing. So those are the two that kind of I picked, and you know, happy during our later discussion to probably have a chat about anyone else that you think is quite impressive. But then what I wanted to kind of share with you was this quote that I also came across, which is the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Mark Twain. So in terms of becoming a good leader or a high impact leader, I believe that the most important thing is to identify your purpose and identity. All right. So this is a nice framework of ourselves, which has been produced by Maximus International. It's a consultancy firm. But I thought, you know, this was a very good representation of pretty much the self-discovery journey that each individual needs to go through in order to become aware of, you know, what are the key drivers behind our behaviors, and you know, why do we do what we do, and you know, why do we literally turn up and kind of, you know, do things that we do every day. And it's not easy. So I've gone through this process probably a couple of times, and it takes a very long time. And to be honest, some people don't even get there, never get there. And you know, I'll step us through this kind of, you know, the various layers of the persona. And you know, unfortunately, we don't have the time to go through the exercises, but we'll just touch on kind of, you know, some of these things high level and how they all kind of fall into place. So the purpose and identity, that's pretty much what we identify with, right? So going back to the why am I here? And that's not something that, you know, we think other people expect us to be or what other people want us to be. It's kind of the deep down, the core, I guess, understanding or the feeling of, you know, where is our passion and you know, why do we do what we do. And you know, in terms of my journey and my discovery, I discovered that, you know, my key purpose is to create the right environment for the people around me so we can all do great things and we can change the world for the better. And yeah, it is a very big statement, and you know, sometimes, you know, one may think that it's too ambitious or too kind of almost arrogant to think that you can change the world. But I truly believe that every single one of us, with the actions that we do on a day-to-day basis, we do have the ability to contribute towards changing the world. And if I, as a leader, can create the environment and encourage my people and get to know what makes them happy, what makes them tick, and you know, how they actually excel in their work and what they need to excel, I see that as my way of contributing towards making the world a better place or making things better for everyone. Right? Then moving on to values and beliefs. So there is a massive list of, I guess, you know, that you would usually get when you go through the exercise of figuring out what your values and beliefs are. And these are the deep kind of embedded, again, drivers within the individual that we usually get, I guess, almost kind of engraved in us throughout life. You know, it usually comes from our upbringing, from the environment that we come from, but it's also, you know, a matter of personality. right? So for me, for instance, some of the key values are, family safety and security, loyalty, success is another one that is very important to me. And I believe it's either respect or responsibility. It's respect. And when I think about it, for me to be able to thrive in an environment and to be the best leader that I possibly can, I need to work, for instance, for an organization that shares those values. It doesn't have to be, that they don't have to be aligned to the T. But if I find myself in an organization that does not promote or does not value loyalty, to me, that's a deal breaker. Sooner or later, I will get to the point where I'm not happy anymore, and I'll probably walk away or find some other place that, values loyalty or respect. Respect is a massive one for me, right? So if I find myself in an environment where people are being disrespectful to each other, they don't have to be disrespectful to me, but, seeing the disrespect between human beings to me is something that is, again, something that I do not wish to tolerate, right? So those are the type of things, really becoming aware of what are the key drivers for us, and then finding a place or operating an environment that shares most of those values becomes quite instrumental for us as individuals, and also, provide us with the ability to be good leaders. Competencies, right? These are the things that, how well do we communicate with our people? How well do we influence other people? So how do we kind of, apply ourselves to day-to-day management or motivation of other people? And some natural kind of, predispositions come into play here, and being aware of those is very important. Then moving on to activities, that is how do we train up, right? So what kind of leaders are we? And we'll talk about it in a minute in terms of, there are kind of 6 distinct styles that, have been recognized as kind of some of the key leadership styles. But, are we compassionate leaders? Are we, commending leaders? Or, are we pace setters? And, we don't have to be one or the other. Those are not mutually exclusive. It's just a matter of being aware how we turn up. And going back to the very first comment I made, what makes a good leader is the ability to recognize what's happening around you, to be fully aware and adjust your style to match the environment and to match the needs of the organization and of the people. And then the last one is the environment. So the ability of the person to maximize its efficiency or their efficiency through the use of resources or, technology that's available, or kind of, any other things that they may be able to use that's around them. Any questions around this? It is a little bit theoretical. We'll go into kind of more practical things towards the end, but I thought it's quite important to set the scene in terms of what I believe and what other believe that is fundamental for good leaders.
No questions. I'm just thinking what my staff or employees will say about my leadership style, but
let's jump into this, right? So there you go. And we're not going to spend too much time on this because we may run out of time, but and I laughed because, it's interesting how you probably would recognize yourself in quite a few of these, right? So you have the commending one, right? Like, and I always think of even the body language, right? Like, this is with our kids, right? Don't you dare do that. Do like, and that's probably a cultural thing as well, because Anglo-Saxons don't usually do that, but that's kind of, that military style, command and control, this is the way up. It's kind of, you don't ask me, if I ask you to jump, you don't ask me, no, you don't say why, or you don't ask why, you ask, how high type of thing, right? So that's kind of the commanding style. Visionary is where, you usually have new kind of, concepts that need to be introduced, or you find yourself with a completely different new challenge. Let's say, it's an environment where we need to innovate, where we need to be creative. So you literally start from a blank piece of paper and you create this big picture, big vision without much detail, but it's kind of, this is what we're going to do, and, kind of inspire everyone with that. And if done well, it can actually create a really nice movement. But, if not, the challenge here is motivating the experts, or the ones that are kind of, very much focused on the detail. They may find you, as detached from the reality, or kind of, being a dreamer almost. Affiliative is the one where, you have those leaders that kind of, tend to build very close and deep connections with their staff, with their people. And sometimes, again, if done, if overdone almost, or if not done properly, it creates an environment where, you almost can't have a healthy kind of, constructive feedback session, or almost, you don't feel comfortable providing negative feedback almost, because, you're afraid how the other person will take it. So it's kind of forming those close, deep relationships, like being very compassionate and so forth. Democratic, right? So everyone has the opportunity to say what they need to say. Things are considered. And look, this is great when, we have quite a lot of time, and when we're kind of, talking about some smaller issues. And it's a really nice a really nice way to engage people and to make them feel obviously as part of the solution. Pace setting. This is the one where, you have this highly energetic, motivated person who just wants to get things done. And there is lots of energy. It's focus on execution. This person is not afraid to roll their hands up. I used to work for a person like this, right? Like so much energy. Oh, what did I do here? But then you lose people along the way, right? You can potentially lose people along the way. And then, the last one is the coaching one, where, it is very much consultative. This is an individual that kind of, really invests lots of time into developing people. It's all about education. It's all about challenging. It's all about, I guess, promoting people. But again, if not done properly, people may feel micromanaged. So this is kind of, the Goleman's leadership styles. And it's not suggesting that each of us fall in only one of these categories. And Nikita, you mentioned you may even find yourself, using or being kind of, in a different style in different occasions, right? Because, for instance, in times of pandemic, the last thing you want to do is to have a democratic leadership style where we kind of go, so, what do you all think? Shall we stay at home or shall we go outside? Like, this is the time when you kind of go, this is a state of emergency. And for us to move forward and to stay healthy and safe, we need to do X, Y, and Z, right? Hmm. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I thought it was quite interesting when I came across it. So yeah. Mm-hmm. So how do you see yourself?
Wow. This is a pressure. So
you don't have to answer it, but just
yeah. I think yes, it goes through several of these, and I think it's very it depends really on what is the timing, I would say, or urgency of something. But so I would I see myself sometimes commanding. I must say this, but I would say that, or what I believe or what I want me to be is more visionary, like let us grow together. But it certainly also depends, I must say, on the industry or environment in which you work. So I've been in public administration, in Ministry of Finance. I was manager there. Then I was manager, but also professor at university. So totally different style there, and now in the NGO sector. So I have to say that you have to accommodate. I think so, at least.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important part, right? It's a matter of having the flexibility, right? Being aware of the environment that you find yourself in, and really, I guess, adopting a style that is most appropriate for that environment.
True. Leaders sometimes have to make difficult decisions. And, my main kind of takeaway from the work in the Ministry of Finance, because as I said, I was at some management position, but that was the highest position, non-political position. So, and then while I was there for 9 years, there were 5 ministers, which will change. So my main takeaway is that when you're at management position, then you have to make decisions. And most of these ministers, they were not able to make decisions, so that's something that I think every manager and leader, you have to make tough decisions sometimes. So I would say that I would like, or I've seen in some leaders, that they usually implement democratic style, in a sense of they would ask almost everyone, what do you think? But then it's very important that he or she makes the final decision, because I've seen like, what do you think, and there is no final decision afterwards. So I would say kind of democratic, but then it would have something of commenting there. Visionary, certainly visionary. I think it's important.
Because you lose all credibility, don't you? If you just keep asking people of their opinion, but then you kind of, you don't have the ability to make a decision, then, you're not doing your job as a leader. Because leadership is about, providing clarity, providing, direction. And the reality is that quite often, not everyone will agree. Right. So if we look for a perfect scenario where everyone will be on board, it's almost impossible. However, what is quite important is that, yes, we hear other people, we consider obviously their feedback and their point of view, but at the end of the day, your expectation, or at least my expectation as a leader, is that once the decision is made, so let's take it a step back. My greatest responsibility is to make sure that I consider things, right? So people feel comfortable that they speak up and they're heard. Once all of that has been considered and all of the obviously opinions have been presented, a decision has to be made, and not everyone will be happy with the decision. But what I expect at that point in time is that regardless of whether someone is happy or not with the decision, they have to respect that decision, right? So that's pretty much, I guess, I believe, a healthy environment where, we have an open and honest discussion, a communication, but then once we have made a call, we're all on board and we're all supportive of what has been decided, and we keep progressing, rather than then, having an environment where, every couple of weeks then we question what was kind of agreed. So we kind of, pedal back, very unhealthy. Right?
Absolutely, I fully agree. And because it comes, like, making decisions comes with responsibility. So once you make decision, then you're responsible. And I think that most people have problem with that, like undertaking responsibility. So so I was frustrated in those years in the Ministry of Finance, ministers, they're undertaking that position, and then they're not able to make decision because they don't want to undertake responsibility. So it was really frustrating period.
And leadership comes with responsibility and accountability.
Absolutely.
So that makes a good leader. Sorry. All right, excellent. Thanks a lot for that, Nikita. So probably linking it into today's topic. So what happens in times of crisis? And we're going back to Maslow. So in times of crisis, the key focus of people is basic needs. So it's all around being healthy, being safe, keeping your job, being able to provide for a family, retaining your house if you're mortgaged, whatever it is, right? So that's the time when we literally, need to adopt a leadership style and become, kind of very purposeful and lead with purpose and lead with humanity. So the next quote that I have comes from a lady called Maya Angelou, and I keep quoting her because this is something that just resonates so deeply with me. It says, people won't remember what you said. People will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Right? So, assuming the position of a leader who is really there to and really cares about the safety and the well-being of their people, who is showing the level of loyalty that is required and care to support everyone through difficult times, is, I believe, a leader that will find themselves in a very strong position after all of this, right? And I came across a very interesting paper in the Harvard Business Review, which actually talks about the experiences of a number of CEOs it was written only on the 24th of March. It was an observation from a CEO in the United States of his colleague CEOs who were doing a really, really good job in terms of navigating things during these difficult times of the pandemic. And the 6 key things that were identified was, number one, the clear, consistent, and transparent communication. So what does that mean? I mean, And to be honest, I think that the way the leadership, executive leadership at my bank, at National Australia Bank, is approaching things is brilliant. You know, so our chief people officer provides daily updates with, you know, what is happening, you know, what are we doing in terms of, you know, supporting our people. 80% of our people have been enabled to work from home, right? So everyone that has to look after kids while they're at home, because the schools are officially not shut down, but most of us have pulled their kids out of school. You know, they're allowed to take carers leave, which is paid leave. You know, during school holidays, we have school holidays coming up. You know, all of us will be able to take pandemic leave, which is again paid leave to look after our kids. So the level of support and communication that we're getting it has been just, you know, brilliant. Everyone feels, I guess, very much informed of what's happening, and if there are specific closures of locations of buildings, if there are people, I guess, being asked to self-isolate for whatever reason, you know, all of that is very transparent. The second kind of characteristic is keeping people, I guess, well, keeping people safe or retaining people. So what we mean by that is that, you know, once obviously we find ourselves in a situation like this, cash flows are under pressure. You know, if there are no sales coming through, if our activity has been subdued, then, you know, we immediately start to think about ways to preserve or kind of, you know, to, I guess, make our organization a little bit more viable, so we can actually reduce our costs, our fixed costs, and we can hopefully survive for a bit longer. Those are very difficult decisions to be made, but also, you know, if not necessary, the advice is to try and hang on to good people for as long as you can. You know, some of the instances or cases that, you know, have been observed, and even talking through my friends out there who work for various companies, you know, the ability to kind of, you know, get people to work 3 days a week rather than 5 days a week to reduce those costs, you know, or kind of people have been asked to take unpaid leave, right? So there are many ways to hopefully ride this tide, and hopefully, you know, enough government support will be coming through to actually help us out throughout these times. But the strong message is, you know, try and hold on to your good people, because this is temporary, right? All of this will go away. And then, you know, we will find ourselves in a position where it will be very hard to attract, you know, good people again. Number 3 is take care of your customers, right? So, you know, what we're seeing at the moment, all of the larger grocery stores here are keeping open, and you know, again, those kind of, you know, individuals working in those stores obviously are exposed to risk. But then again, going back to the basic needs, you know, providing food, providing kind of all the necessities to the population is essential. Also, you know, I guess being in a position where, yeah, we keep childcare centers open, so we can actually support, I guess, those parents that are in essential jobs to continue to assist, to provide medical assistance, to, I guess, do whatever they need to do to keep the society running during the time of crisis, right? The fourth one is, take care of your suppliers if you can, right? I mean, what Amazon is doing, they have created a $5 million fund to actually support some of the vendors, or some of their vendors that they know, you know, will be struggling during this time. And again, you know, it all depends on circumstances and individual kind of organizational positions. But if in a position to do so, you know, it is something that will I guess do the organization quite good once obviously the pandemic is over. The fifth one is, take care of your communities. Again, you know, Johnson & Johnson in China, you know, sending necessary medical equipment to hospitals. I also heard that Louis Vuitton is repurposing some of their, I guess, sites or manufacturing sites. So, you know, that were previously manufacturing perfumes, they're actually now producing hand sanitizers that are being sent out to to various, I guess, organizations in need. Zoom. Zoom is providing free access to kids across America from, you know, at all levels, from, you know, grade 1 all the way to the last year of high school. And the last one is, you know, as leaders in these difficult times, we have to remember to take care of ourselves. I find myself like, and even though I would like to think that I'm well-grounded and, you know, I'm usually someone who's kind of, you know, well composed and, you know, I don't overreact during time of crisis and so forth. And I would like to think that I'm quite resilient. I did find myself, particularly in the first couple of weeks, not being able to sleep well. Right? It's hard because there is so much happening. You know, you hear about your customers struggling. You hear about, you know, your colleagues that, you know, are going through some difficult times. Quite a few of their partners are losing jobs, right? You hear about all these people lining up, you know, kilometers long kind of, you know, queues in front of those social services centers. You know, you turn on the TV, it's all about these curves and mortalities, and, you know, it's a bit too much, right? And we have to recognize that, you know, as long as we try to stay strong and, you know, stoic for everyone around us, we are human too. And, you know, it is very important to take care of ourselves, you know, do your meditation, get out there, exercise, do whatever you need to do, you know, talk to your friends, talk to your, you know, kind of partners, make sure that, you know, we maintain that kind of, you know, state of well-being so we can turn up again the next time and hopefully lead our people and our organizations into what's ahead of us. So that's all. I don't know if we've gone over time or we have 10 minutes to go. And I guess we can open it to any questions or discussions. I would love to hear what everyone else is experiencing and, you know, what are your views of or examples of great leadership during these times.
I'm always willing to jump in, but I would leave some space for the others, actually, if there are some other observations or questions. So. Sorry. So. Okay, so there are no questions, I guess, or maybe someone would write their questions. But in general, Biljana, so as you mentioned, because that was at the beginning of your presentation, it was about this question of your colleague, how do you communicate and so on. So I suppose the main takeaway from what followed after that slide was that essentially it's time to rethink everything, to go back to the basics and try to satisfy at least our basic needs, which are at the bottom of the Maslow hierarchy of needs. However, you're also mentioning that your bank is working almost full-time, kind of. You're managing to work from home, but serving the clients. So in general, what is the leadership or how it looks in your bank? So do they follow like this hierarchy of needs? You said that you get regular communication from the top management on daily basis and so on. But do you think this approach is also implemented by other banks or in general companies in Australia? What do you think is the actual situation?
My observation is that it's much easier, I think, to be in a position to be more of a compassionate and you know, kind of lead with humanity if you find yourself in a position where not everything is at stake, right? So working for a bank is a probably completely different scenario than working in a smaller or even medium-sized, you know, private enterprise, where you have, you know, a number of owners or a couple of owners that have their livelihood at stake, and all of a sudden they see their company being shut down, right? And it's almost I would like to think that people at kind of all levels of organizational kind of setups and in various companies will have the ability to step back and to, I guess, act in line with what we're talking about. But again, I think that kind of human needs of the desire to satisfy your basic needs, going back to Maslow, will kick in with the leaders as well, right? So as much as they would probably love to be in a position to help everyone else around them, I think it will be more around, how do they preserve, I guess, the well-being of their family and kind of continue to have some kind of source of income before they will start to think about, the people around them. That's, a very generic approach, but a very generic observation. But I think that's kind of in most cases, it's human nature. Again, the contrast to that is working for a large organization when there is a lot of there is a massive safety net behind us. It's probably much easier for me to lead in the way that I do and to talk about all these things because my job, at least for the foreseeable future, is secure, right? And I know that, the bank will be there supporting me because I'm in an industry that is pretty much, contributing significantly to the economy. And I will be in a position to continue to generate that income that's required. So I can actually focus on other things, not on myself, but on other things around me. That's my opinion, my observation, my honest observation. I'm sure some may kind of try and paint a slightly different picture, but I think that, going back to those basic human needs, we probably all start with ourselves. And then once we kind of, satisfy those needs up that triangle or kind of the pyramid, then we can kind of, be in a position where we can look around, the other kind of aspects of our life and people around us and be a little bit more generous and be able to do things for others.
Yeah, thank you, Biljana. Before we started the call, I was just telling you that we are hearing this new information coming from Italy or south of Italy that actually, people cannot satisfy their basic needs, which is food. So they started to steal from supermarkets and so on. So there are policy patrols in front of all major supermarkets. So it really shows how difficult this situation is, and that we, as you mentioned, go to the basics for satisfying the basic needs. So that's true.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I also have a question.
Thanks, Emma.
Biljana, thanks for the great presentation. Listening to you, I was wondering if you can discern the three main character traits that a person must have in order to lead in times of crisis.
I think, first of all, confidence, right? You need to be, I guess, confident, and confidence probably links into what Nikita was saying previously, links in closely with the ability to make decisions, right? One way or another, decisiveness and kind of, being able to, first of all, observe, be aware, collect all the information. And the interesting part is that in an environment like this, things change rapidly. They change so quickly that you don't really have the time to sit there and overanalyze and collect all the information, so you can actually be in a position where you feel like you know it all and you have all the information, it's well informed, and then you feel confident that you can make a call and make a decision. It is pretty much an environment where you need to kind of, just face into the uncertainty and take things as they come. And just literally step it up take ownership and you know, be confident in what you're delivering, because at the end of the day you will have an army of people looking at you and you know, hoping for some guidance and hoping, I guess, you know, for some kind of direction to help them overcome the current situation. The second thing for me is that kind of ability and the authenticity, right? So being open and honest. You need to call it for whatever it is, because you know, that open, honest, consistent communication again makes sure that people feel safe, and you know, it kind of, you know, stops that confusion or almost anarchy creation, because most of us are operating from a point of fear, right? So if you have someone who is changing the messaging every couple of days, or kind of you know, not really getting to the point of things and really kind of, you know, explaining the why we're doing what we're doing, you know, then that can be a bit of an issue. And then the third thing is that kind of, you know, humility and compassion. And going back, I would probably even put that as the first point. Being, I guess, in a position where you can put the priority, or you put the priority, or sorry, the well-being of everyone around you, the health, the safety around you, of the people around you, is probably one of the most important things that you can do in terms of achieving that trust, right? Because you need people to trust you. You need them to know that you're behind them and that you have their best interest at stake. And only then, I guess, they will listen, they will follow, and they will engage. Yeah. So pretty much in summary, it's that kind of compassion, humanity, humility. Number one is that kind of confidence, and number three is that clear and consistent communication.
Thank you. Yes, great answer. I also think that trust is key in this kind of situations. And
absolutely.
That these times are challenging and emotions may get over us, but we must stay calm and deal with the pressure at the best as we can.
Absolutely. And you know, as they say, you know, we all need to try and not overreact, right? Based on the news or the messaging that we've heard or that we've seen. The healthiest thing is to just you know, focus on what needs to be done, and just, you know, break it down into I guess, you know, simple things that we can all do to actually get to the point where we're all in a better position.
Yeah.
But thanks for the question.
Thank you.
So I think we are right on time. An hour has passed. I'm not sure, please, if there are some additional questions you can ask, or maybe you can contact Biljana as well. Thank you, Biljana, really. You know, it was also time for me at least to rethink and go through all these crazy times and really focus on the, not on necessities or we can say necessities or the most important things that matter actually in our lives. And it also includes being human at this period of time, but also doing the best and doing all your obligations, kind of. We should not forget about that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, thanks a lot. Peter is writing. I think Vesna, they're all saying that it was a great presentation. So we have these comments.